What's up everyone, welcome back to a brand new video. So first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for getting me to 200,000 subscribers. It's an insane milestone, especially considering we were just at 100,000 a year ago. I'll be honest, I'm recording this way before this video is actually being uploaded, so by now there's probably way more than 200,000, which is awesome. But regardless, the message still stands. So this is going to be kind of different. A lot of people have requested that I continue series into GT, and I wasn't too sure about it since it didn't seem like there was too much interest. I've noticed a lot of you prefer stories with Super rather than GT. So today I'm going to test it out with a pretty popular series that I think would work well with this. Although I am going to have to briefly cover some events of Super. After all this time, What If BARDOCK and Gine Survived has returned, and we'll be going into GT with it. For this video, let's set a like goal of 3,500 likes. If we hit that, I'll continue the series and maybe do more GT series in the future. Anyways, let's pick up from here. So I'm not going to be doing any recap in this video, and I'm just going to assume you're going into this by having already watched it. I will link the full series above, which has every single part so far in it. I'll give you a second to watch that, even though it takes a while. Ready? Good? Okay, cool. I also did kind of lie, this isn't purely going to be GT, we're also going to have to cover a bit of Dragon Ball Super first, specifically the Granolah arc. So the first half or so of this video will be dedicated to that, and the last half will be dedicated to GT. And in this series, it's pretty important that we cover the Granolah arc. It should be pretty obvious why. So the arc itself is going to start very differently, since the Moro arc also went different. But there still would be some similarities. Obviously, Granolah still wants to get revenge against the Saiyans, and at some point, he would make his wish to do so. Of course, with no Frieza there, he's not incredibly concerned about all this right now. But at some point, the Heeters would probably put him up to this, and he'd find out that the Saiyans still do exist, at least some of them. He gathers the 2 Dragon Balls on his planet, making the wish. His power increases dramatically, although his lifespan is cut short. The Heeters are doing all this so they can get the Dragon Balls. They show Granolah the location of the Saiyans, and without him on the planet, they won't need to worry about getting the Dragon Balls. Although, there's an issue that comes up in their plan. When Granolah eventually does leave for Earth, Monaido is pretty concerned about him, so he goes along with Granolah, also bringing the Dragon Balls along with him, just to make sure they don't get in the wrong hands. Everything about this seems pretty fishy, and he was pretty right to do so, because now the Heeters have to follow everyone to Earth. Of course, they do need to keep a low profile. They don't want Granolah or Monaido getting suspicious. But at least this will lead them to the Dragon Balls, at least the ones that Monaido has. Things on Earth are pretty low-key right now. And forgive me if I'm kind of breezing through this arc, but I am trying to get to GT as quick as possible. But everyone notices an odd presence approaching Earth. They can't really tell what it is. It seems strong, but also unfamiliar, and not like it's malicious either, but also not necessarily good. As Granolah gets closer to the planet, Oatmeal assists him in locating the Saiyans. They're not exactly sure what to look for, so they search for different power levels. Obviously, all Saiyans have their keys suppressed right now, so Granolah has to wait a bit until one of them starts training. And eventually, he catches 2 powers surging. Immediately, he pursues these powers. He's not sure if they're even the Saiyans, but judging by how strong they are, it could be. He arrives and finds 2 people training. A short Saiyan with spiky hair, and one with really long hair. It's Raditz and Vegeta. He can immediately tell that these 2 are Saiyans, and he wastes no time. Amidst their training, Vegeta suddenly gets hit in the back with an attack. He raises his ki just in time to protect against it. Had he not done this, it would have probably killed him. But this does briefly stun him for a bit. Raditz immediately powers up, going on the defensive. And he narrowly avoids a sniper attack from Granolah. He lends some ki to Vegeta, helping him get up. And they have no clue what's going on. They ask who this guy is, and a short conversation commences. Monaido's following close behind in his own ship, and he could already tell something bad's happening. He knew this wouldn't turn out well. Granolah's trying to get revenge. He needs to stop this before it's too late. He needs to know the truth about the Saiyans, or at least that one that helped him before. Raditz and Vegeta immediately begin fighting Granolah, and of course people would sense this fight going on. Others begin teleporting in. First Goku comes in, then Ruda, and then finally, Bardock teleports in. With all these Saiyans fighting Granolah right now, it's actually easy to hold him off. But once Bardock comes in, he tells everyone to stop fighting. He can't believe his eyes. Granolah asks what the meaning of this is, and Bardock's completely confused too. Does Granolah not remember anything? That might make sense actually. He didn't really get to see Bardock's face too much. But then another person comes into the area, Monaido. He's glad to see that the fight's already stopped, and he could tell exactly why. Of course, he would remember Bardock, and Bardock recognizes him too. Granolah's confused. What's going on here? And Monaido begins explaining. He and Bardock begin telling the story about how Granolah was saved. And he can't believe what he's hearing, especially because the one that actually saved him is right here. Obviously, Bardock doesn't expect him to stop right away from hearing this. But he tells Granolah they mean no harm. The Saiyans are peaceful now, at least the ones that are alive still. And Monaido confirms this. He remembers Bardock from before. And besides Vegeta, all the people that he is fighting just now are his kids. It does explain why they're on this planet too. This planet, Earth, it actually seems like a pretty peaceful place. But then Bardock asks, how did he even find them? Did someone put him up to this or something? Bardock's trying to think, who would even want this to happen? I mean, it's weird that now of all times they come here. Was he tricked by someone? He's trying to think, who would possibly have a grudge against the Saiyans? Or at least, a grudge against him. He's trying to think of any loose ends that haven't been tied. But then, he senses multiple energies approaching, and he remembers all from before. Just from the amount of people that he's sensing, and the fact that Granolah is involved in this, he simply asks, do the Heeters have something to do with this? Granolah has no answer at all. He's just so confused right now and caught off guard by all this info. And even though he still is angered right now, reluctantly he nods. So, that must be them approaching. He knows that they're troublemakers, so he's gonna make this quick. Bardock powers up, immediately going into Ultra Instinct. By now, he's actually been able to tap into this at will. He's not even sure if he'll need this, but he'd rather be safe than sorry. He just wants to enjoy some peacetime. He places 2 fingers on his forehead and briefly departs. On the Heeters spaceship, someone suddenly boards it. It's Bardock. And just as quickly as he boards the ship, he starts taking out as many of the Heeters as possible. Alec watches on as the rest of his crew is killed. A sneak attack. He wasn't expecting this. How did this Saiyan find them? And he recognizes Bardock's face. That's the one from before. That one Saiyan they came into contact with a while ago. But as I mentioned, Bardock wants to waste no time here. He knows these people could be tricky and he doesn't want them around any longer. Alec can't even process his thoughts because soon enough, Bardock kills him. For all he knows, the Heeters could have gotten a lot stronger since then and he didn't want to risk fighting them. Attacking them while they're off guard is pretty easy. And since they were coming to Earth, he knew there was definitely something bad happening. He doesn't know what, but he won't even question it. As long as they're dead, his conscience feels fine for now. He destroys the ship mid-flight and then teleports back to where he was. He powers back down into base and tells everyone else they could stand off guard too. Of course, Granolah's still not really trusting of everyone here, but he trusts Monito in his word, and apparently Bardock even remembers him too. He begins explaining the entire situation of what happened, and from what Bardock's hearing, it just seemed like the Heeters were trying to trick him for something. Maybe they wanted him off planet, maybe they were scared of the Saiyans, or maybe they were scared of Granolah. Whatever the case, he's at least glad this is partially cleaned up, but Granolah is still not really sure. But thankfully he has cooled down. He's very conflicted right now, and he just ends up returning back to his planet. That was a really weird encounter. Maybe they'll see that guy again, who knows? Bardock can't believe that he forgot about the Heeters. It's almost like they didn't exist before this video was made. So now we enter a massive time skip. This is way further into the future up until when GT actually starts. And obviously there's going to be some pretty major changes. The reason I wanted to cover the Granolah arc is because I'm actually going to bring him into the story here. After a few years he would have died, but I mean he has the Dragon Balls, he could just probably reverse that effect, even if it does mean he loses his power with it. And over that time skip, he eventually does end up visiting the Saiyans again because he is interested in Bardock, and he occasionally goes back and forth from his planet and Earth. But thankfully, everyone on Earth lives a pretty peaceful life in this time. In case it wasn't obvious enough, I'm continuing into GT with the events of Super happening still. So this is in the same continuity as everything else. It's just after the GT time skip. By this time, Bardock is already getting older, as is Gine. The rapid aging for both of them is starting to set in. But it isn't that bad at the moment. Of course, everyone's been training over this time skip. A little on and off, but most of them have been consistent with it. And it's kind of a shame. Bardock has all this power, but since he is getting older, soon enough his power won't really be too useful. He's going to live a more peaceful life from now on. Bardock isn't that concerned. He lives a good life and is glad that they ended up here. As much as he likes fighting, he doesn't want to do it his whole life, especially with how hard it's going to be in a few more years. At first, this aging isn't noticeable, but he starts getting slower with his movements. It's not as easy to fight as it was before. His hair's even starting to gray. But at least his kids still have a lot of time ahead of them. Speaking of them, all 3 of them are training on the lookout right now. There is no Oob here, so Goku doesn't have him as a student. But he still does have a ton of people to train with. Besides his own children and his siblings, he even has a niece and a granddaughter, both of which are part Saiyans, and don't worry, they're going to be in the next few parts. I'll be completely honest, I didn't forget about Jade, I just don't have art for her yet. And as for Pan, she will come in later. Most of Goku's time is spent training with his siblings though. Although amidst this training, there's a really weird occurrence. The Pilaf gang of all people comes up on the lookout, and they make a wish. Well, it's not really something they intended, it's accidental. And this wish ends up turning Goku into a kid. Thankfully, it doesn't affect the other 2. The way they phrased it made it so that only Goku turned into a kid. It's not like they really knew Raditz and Ruda either before when they were kids. But still, this is a big issue. Goku is a kid now for some reason. Obviously Ruda and Raditz are freaking out, but Goku doesn't really care. I mean, this isn't really that bad. They tell him this isn't something that he should just brush off, but he says it's still fine. After some time though, someone gets in contact with Goku, a familiar friend of his. It's Piccolo. Piccolo is still with the Kais, and most of his time is actually spent on that planet now. And that's exactly why he's contacting Goku. When he hears about the Black Star Dragon Balls being used, yeah, this is kind of a big issue. Once he heard about this whole wish, he did some research into them because they weren't made with regular Dragon Balls. And it turns out these Dragon Balls need to be brought back to Earth or else this planet's gonna be gone. Yeah, it's a pretty big issue. Piccolo would love to help since he can Kai and teleport everywhere, but from what all the other Kais around him tell him, he shouldn't be that involved in the affairs of mortals. But giving them this info isn't that big of a deal. He can't offer help and say where the Black Star Dragon Balls are, but they need to let the mortals handle some stuff on their own. It's weird since Piccolo is technically a god now. He's become a lot more separated from Earth, but it's not like he doesn't contact his friends every now and then. This is just a very odd path that he went down compared to where everyone else is. Thankfully, they can still get out into space. This is where Bulma comes in. She'll be able to make a ship and help everyone. But Piccolo did warn Goku and everyone, this might be a bit dangerous, so don't just go alone. Goku's actually going to have a crew for his grand tour. So who's going to end up going along with him? I think Goten and Trunks are going to be an obvious pick still. I'm sure he'd check with Raditz and Ruda too, and I'd say Ruda would go along with him. And just with those four, that should be enough. He doesn't really need to ask anyone else. The rest of his family and Ruda's family stays here. And like I said, I'm bringing in Pan later. She's not actually going to be here. With Ruda on the ship, she makes sure that everything goes okay. So nothing weird happens with the departure, and this crew actually stays. So Goten actually does join along, not being left behind. This should be an interesting trip. I mean, it's kind of a weird crew, and Goku's also a kid, and they're going to a bunch of unknown planets to get Dragon Balls. But hey, they're not too worried about any danger. This whole group is pretty strong collectively. And now, the hunt for the Black Star Dragon Balls can begin. Although, since we are kind of strapped for time, I'm going to kind of skim over this a bit. We have way more important stuff to cover later on, and also I did spend a lot of time in this part covering the parts of Super. Again, this is my first time doing a GT what if, so I feel that skipping this Dragon Ball hunt might be more ideal. It'll give a lot more time for the more important stuff later on. And obviously one of the first things I'm referring to is Baby. Eventually they do get to planet M2. Everything goes pretty okay up until then, but this planet is kind of freaking everyone out. They fought a bunch of robots together. Although things are going a bit different. Remember, this is after Super, so everyone in the scenario is incredibly strong. Planet M2 is no issue, at least until Baby appears. The other robots are no big deal, but since Baby's power is dependent on the person he takes control of, yeah, this might actually be a bit of an issue. But he only has one shot at this. Once Baby's actually revealed, he has one shot at trying to infect someone. He saw how quickly the rest of the villains were dismantled. These people are powerful and he needs to be wise about it. And at first, he actually is able to take control of someone pretty strong right now. The person he gets control of is Ruda, who's actually the strongest in the group here. With Goku as a kid, that did make him a bit weaker, and Ruda was always around his level, so now she's the strongest in this group here. But this is also an issue for Baby. She's able to separate herself from Baby. They're just about ready to kill him, but he ends up escaping, being able to covertly get away from everyone. This could be bad. Now with this guy out there, they don't know what he's going to be up to. But still, he seems pretty weak. Ruda explains what happened. If she was strong enough to get free of Baby's control, everyone else should be fine too. The Dragon Balls are still a priority. They need to make sure that Earth is safe. But still, they can't help but feeling concerned about Baby. He ends up going through space, trying to get stronger along the way. He needs to be able to possess someone. In his current state, he couldn't possess Ruda. That might have been a little bit too ambitious. Maybe one of the other two would have worked, but he's still not too sure. As he gets closer to Earth, he gets stronger. And by the time he's there, he needs to be strong enough to possess someone, or else this all won't work. It'll have been for nothing. But maybe he doesn't have to possess a Saiyan. Maybe he could find someone else out in space, steal their body, and take them to Earth. On his journey, he begins looking for planets. He needs to find a planet with strong life forms. Someone that's strong enough to increase his power, but not too strong where Baby can't possess them. And he finds an odd planet along this journey. It doesn't really seem to have too many strong people on it, but there is one really strong power that he can sense. It's not as crazy as the Saiyans he was fighting before, but still, it might be just exactly what he needs. It's a planet called Cereal. But he needs to be careful about this. If this doesn't go correctly, and if he doesn't get out of here fast enough, this could be it for him. He was lucky to get away once, but that's not going to happen again. He needs to possess as many people as possible. Thankfully, it'll be pretty easy to possess the people on planet Cereal. Most of them are weak, except for one. For the sake of the scenario, I'll assume that Manaido is still alive by now, although nearing the end of his life. He notices something strange. In the city nearby, all the people are starting to act really weird. Granolah notices this too. He's in the city one day getting food for Manaido, and all the Shigarians are acting really weird. It's like they're staring him down or something. Some of them then lunge towards him. He grabs the eyepiece on his face with Oatmeal, and thankfully, he could do this precisely. He throws it right back at Manaido's house, telling Oatmeal to deliver a message. Get Manaido out of here. Oatmeal lands back at the house, telling Manaido to leave now. He's confused. What's going on? But maybe Granolah's right. He needs to leave. Granolah's in the city fighting off everyone. And then an odd feeling overcomes him. As he powers up, it's almost like something enters his body, taking control of him. Granolah watches as the Manaido ship leaves, hoping that he'll be okay. He has no idea of what's going on, but it's not good. And this is the last memory he has before he's taken control of by Baby. His eyes close and they open once more, now looking different. Okay, this body might be pretty interesting. Baby could feel some pretty significant power within Granolah. This will be a great vessel to take to Earth and kill the Saiyans with. As Goku's crew continues their journey, Baby continues growing stronger, now with Granolah's body as his main body. Baby Granolah heads to Earth, and this is where we'll leave off for now. So, what did you guys think about this part? What do you think is going to happen next time? Will Baby's plan work? What will happen with BARDOCK and Gine? And how will the hunt for the Dragon Balls go? Leave any thoughts and suggestions in the comments below. I'll be sure to check them out to see what you guys think. As always, if you liked the video, be sure to drop a like. And let's try to hit that like goal from the beginning of the video so we can get another part of this series. If you haven't already, why not subscribe? as well as hitting the bell icon to be notified about any future parts of this What If, or any other videos that I upload on my channel. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.